ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादम् शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यम् केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयम् नमामि चिन्मयं देवम् सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम. We are trying to study Shankara Bhashya of Brahma Sutra in Akash Adhikarana. The most important aspect of a thinking person is he continuously thinks and contemplates. So, Mananam has always been an integral part of inquisitiveness about things, subjects that do not matter in daily life. Our needs and wants compel us to think, but the moment the needs and wants are completed, the thinking can stop. I am hungry, I will get my food, and my thought or my thinking about food can stop. But other than the physical requirements of the existence, every human being, being the exalted species amongst the hierarchy of all the jivas, a man tends to think about abstract things. Our ability to think and extrapolate our thinking into either past or future is an unique ability that we have as human beings. You will not find any animal sitting and contemplating about past and future because the awareness of past and future is not present in animal level. Because human being is an evolved species, it has an ability to relate with the different parts of the time. And because it has ability to deal with different parts of time, it also has an ability which is called imagination. And it is this imagination that helps us in contemplation. This imaginative faculty that we have within us helps us to explore what is not known. You might observe that whatever is known, we don't need to imagine. I don't need to imagine my finger because I know my finger. But there is something which is not known to me. Then I need to imagine what is there beyond the sun. I need to imagine. And this faculty of imagination is the beginning of process of contemplative thinking. Rather, it is expected that the one who has serious and in-depth imaginative thinking, his thoughts, with the help of his intelligence, lead him to newer vistas of experience. In the early days of civilization, there was so much abstract for the human beings. And so was the case of the early Aryan people, the Vedic period. During the time, from whatsoever origin, when the Aryans had settled around the land that was dominated by the Saraswati, the Asikni, the Parushni, the Vipasha, the Vitasta, that means the present rivers called Ravi, Bias, Satluj, the present part of Punjab, a highly fertile area with heavy amount of downpour. It is amongst these areas the early Aryan, with their not so complex living lifestyle, had developed a civilization wherein the contemplative thinking was given tremendous amount of importance, because the inquisitiveness had no bound. Everything appeared to be quite distant. Everything appeared to be quite enigmatic. Everything appeared to be ridden with puzzles. The early Aryans contemplated and imagined from where the rains are coming. And since they are coming from the top, from the Urdhva Disha, and we cannot see from where it is coming, but it appears to come from a bluish dome called sky. In the early development of human thought, it was ascribed that somebody like me, but more powerful, must be sitting at the top there in the blue dome of the sky and making the downpour available. However, they were wise enough to know that if the rains are not there, the grains will not be there, the harvest will not be there, the crop will not be there. And it is the same crop that we eat. So that means it is the same crop that does my poshana. So if my poshana is done by the grains, which in turn depend on the water, which in turn comes from the sky, there must be some God dwelling there, having enormous power, definitely superior to me, and has an ability to give me the downpour of the water. And what if he stops giving us the water? Was the initial thinking, and then came the thinking that I must please that God with the help of my act so that the downpour continues. And he seems to be a ferocious god because there is lightning in the sky with tremendous amount of noise. That means it must be having a thunderbolt as its instrument. The Varuna god, the Indra god, and the lightning is nothing else but the chariot of Indra traveling from one end to the other end on the vast expanse of the sky. These were the early contemplations, early thinkings of the Aryans, which led to the propitiation of gods. And the only way to reach these gods was to reach there up, higher up in the sky. And what goes higher up in the sky is the smoke. So it is only by burning some wood with the help of some oil, so that whatever we put into that particular burning pit ultimately helps us in sending forth through the Agni, the Jwala of which is in the superior direction going upwards. And that is how the message of our oblations, our propitiations would reach the God that is there at the Urdhva place called sky or Akash. In the beginning, the Aryans may have this kind of development of thought and the development of pantheon of gods, because for the Agni to move upwards, which what helps? It is the wind that helps. So there has to be some devata which is around us, which is not high up there, but it is surrounding us in the form of wind, and then it became Marutu devata. So on and so forth, the development of pantheon of gods was there. And this can definitely be the initial development of Aryans about the thought of the creator, creation, God, and devatas. However, after the initial period of ritualistic observations to please the gods, there came a new development or the angle in the thinking, and that angle is called contemplation, more about what is being done. And this contemplation now is not more merely focused on the gods, but it was more focused on how the forces or how the things around us are existing. Now the thinking has gone from a simplified and a very ritualistic, patternistic thinking to a very deep and a serious depth thinking about things around us. Then came the thought that the one who died, where did he go? Does he go there or does he come back? From where we are coming? Although it is the crop that makes the women and the men competent enough to produce the progeny, from where the progeny comes? But progeny is impossible unless there is a fertile couple. So what is fertility? The fertility is now no more a phenomenon of just producing the child or progeny of human beings, but everything that can reproduce has definitely a fertile potential. The fertile potential led to fertility and fertility worship, leading to Prithvi worship and worship of fertility goddess or mother goddess. Each of these stream of thoughts then slowly developed further, and this deeper and deeper contemplation started. And during these contemplations, those who dedicated entirely their time in contemplations were the Brahmana, who knew through contemplations higher and higher truths. Such higher truths which explained to them what is there around us, what is there beyond us, and what is there which, unless we exalted ourselves, we cannot understand. All the three were studied. This study that was done by them was then compiled into the Veda by the different realized people, by their utterances in the meditative states. And that is why in Rigveda we find the earliest reference of deep contemplative thinking in Nasadiya Sukta, wherein a question is asked: what was there when nothing was there? When existence was not there and non-existence was there, who was there and what was there? Was there a God, or even gods were not there? And whosoever was there, did he know that he was there or he was not there? Perhaps even he did not know that he was there. This sukta indicates how high the contemplative thinking of Aryans had reached. And that is why those who were performing the utterances of mantra of the Vedic Rucha were using the Vedic Rucha for the contemplation purpose, at the same time knowing the importance of Rigveda. The Rigveda was set into certain meters so that it could be sung in a combined fashion, so that each Rucha of the Rigveda can be, after setting it into the meter, can be pronounced in a proper manner so as to let everybody hear the importance of it. And anybody and everybody was not allowed to sing this particular Vedic Rucha. Only those who had contemplated enough, they were called the Adhikari or the priest of that particular Rucha. So developed was the science of pronunciation of these mantras that only those who can pronounce the mantra or the rucha so as to develop the clear effect of that mantra or rucha on all the surroundings around them, including the human beings, were only allowed to pronounce it. And that led to a specialization of certain set of rishis who were allowed and authorized through their deep study pronunciation of these ruchas during the yajna ceremony or yaga ceremony of different places, including the ruler or the king of that particular area. So during the Vedic time, it was not uncommon to see the Aryans who have assembled at the yajna, which was an oft repetitive affair happening in every household, in every kula, in every gotra, as well as at the level of even the royal palace. The king also being knowledgeable, and the Kshatriyas of that time were at times more knowledgeable than the Brahmanas. And that is how, when the Rishis specialized, called Rutviks, were called to perform the Rucha of the Yajna, then each Rishi was given a specific name, and that particular specific Rishi would be only allowed or authorized to pronounce a particular Rucha in a particular Swara. So we come to the concept of Rishi specialization, such as Hotri Rishi, Udgit Rishi, Prastava Rishi, Agnihotra Rishi. And the purpose of such things coming together to perform yajna was It was also performance of yajna, but it was always followed by a discussion that led to overall welfare of all the Aryans, who always considered their ultimate welfare as moksha. So that is the reason why the contemplative thinking that led to imaginative contemplation, in which we all even today immerse ourselves, is what is the vast expanse of this universe. One of the most difficult aspect while doing imagination is our utter helplessness in imagining a state when the universe was not existing. Howsoever we may imagine, howsoever we may stretch our imagination, howsoever intelligent brain of our generation may think of a state when universe was not there, it is impossible to visualize it, because all our imaginative contemplative faculty is restricted to universe, not beyond universe. We are only used to either presence or absence of a thing, but we can never even imagine a situation when absence and presence are both not there. A thing is present or a thing is absent, but a situation where presence and absence both are not there cannot be imagined or contemplated by us, because we have been locked into the periphery of a thinking which can only hover between the aspects of to be or not to be, presence or absence, it is there or it is not there, it is white or it is black, there is light or there is darkness. Can we imagine a situation where there is neither light nor darkness? We cannot. And when a further contemplation was done by Aryans on this, they realized that what is experienced, that only can be imagined by extrapolation. That which is not experienced or that which is not experienceable cannot be imagined. And for the first time, the thought started emanating that there is something which is beyond thinking, there is something which is beyond contemplation, there is something which is beyond the indriyas, there is something which is beyond the capacity of the intellect. And there started the journey of finding what is there which is beyond the intellect. And those rishis, by their sheer determination, they utilize the contemplation of highest order with the help of the buddhi to transcend the buddhi and reach the vast expanse beyond the buddhi, wherein it was a direct realization of a state in which there is no presence and no absence. The entire secret of the highest realization was now in the hands of Aryans. The royal secret was in the hands which openly declared through the Upanishads that it is that which is beyond space and time that is real, and it is that which is within space and time is unreal. They called that which was beyond space and time as real or Atma. They called what is there within the realm of space and time as Anatma. And they said what you require is Atma Anatma Vivek. with such a kind of profound development of the rishis during the Vedic period, the kings continued the glorious tradition of calling the Brahmanas or the rishis. And the word Brahmana here has nothing to do with the caste. It had something to do with the realization of Brahma. So it was common amongst the kings as well as the commoners to have the yajna performed in the right spirit, dedicate their individual life as per the dictates of the Veda, and also conduct the discussions which was helpful for the contemplation. And such discussion, one of them is the background of the Akasha Adhikarana, wherein we find two Brahmana and one Kshatriya coming together and discussing and contemplating on a subject which was a common phenomena during the Vedic period. So we see that there is a Shilaka Shalavatya, the name of a Brahman. Shilaka was his name, Shalavatya was his father's name. Being normally called as Shilaka Shalavatya was one Brahmana. Another was the Dalbhya, the son of Chikitayana. These two Brahmins came in the home of a Kshatriya whose name was Pravahana, who was son of Jaivali. These three are mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad in the story form. What is important for us to know is the Shilaka, Dalbhya, and Pravahana, two Brahmana and one Kshatriya, they came together, and as usual, the contemplation or the discussion started. And the discussion was, although the Pravahana, son of Jaivali, was a Kshatriya and was far more knowledgeable than the two Brahmana, yet he decided to play it very humble and asked a question to the Brahmana, saying that, Guru Varya, what is the greatest in our life? The question put was, what is highest in this world? And as an answer to that particular question, because it was the Samaveda that was being chanted for the Yajna, the question was put as, we are doing Sama Yajna, but what is greater than Sama? Indirectly, the question was, what is great in this world? And the question was put by Shilaka. The Shilaka asked Dalbhya, what is greater than Sama? And Dalbhya Rishi answered that the goal of the Sama meaning the chanting of the mantra of the Samaveda, goal of that is nothing else but Swara. The essence of chanting is the right kind of Swara. We all know that in mantra, Swara is important. But the goal of that Swara is Prana. Because if you have the right quantity and right frequency of prana giving the energy to the swara, then only the Sama can come in the right form while singing. So goal of swara is prana, but the goal of prana is anna, the food, because without the food, pranas cannot function. Goal of anna is aap, and goal of aap or a jala is a swarga. This was the interpretation given by Dalbhya Rishi to Shilaka about what he thinks is higher and higher from the Sama, starting from the Sama. But then the Shilak asked the question, if according to you Swarga is the highest, what is beyond the Swarga? Dalbhya says, my knowledge takes me only to the level of Swarga. Beyond that, I do not know. Now, it was not a theoretical knowledge, but the Rishis that directly experienced the Swarga or the higher Loka or the higher experiences So Dalbhe said, I can only talk up to Swarga, but unfortunately my jnana beyond that is not there. And if I don't come to know what is beyond Swarga, my head will roll, which in Lakshanartha means it is worth dying if you don't know the knowledge what is beyond Swarga. So Dalbhe Rushi declares his incompetence. Then Shilaka comes forward and says, let me tell you, it is not Swarga, but it is Bhuloka, which is beyond Swarga. And that is the reason Samaveda praises Bhuloka more than the Swargaloka. These are the discussions going on between the two Brahmana on a question what is higher in life. And after Shilaka has mentioned this, then the Kshatriya Pravahana Jaibali enters into the discussion and says, I am sorry, sir, both of you are not correct and your knowledge seems to be incomplete because the goal of this world is Akash. The dheya of this world is Akash. And that is with this background in Chandogya Upanishad, wherein on the question that was asked, Pravahan Jabali is answering that Akash is the ultimate goal. And listening to this for the first time to Brahmanas, they say, Asya lokasya ka gatihi iti akash iti hovacha sarvani hava imani bhutani akasha deva samatpadyant akasham pratyastam yantyakasho hi ye vaibhyo jayat akashaha parayanam. The question now asked is, what is the Adhar for these lok? And the Pravahana Jaivali says Akasha, because from Akasha everything is created. Everything dissolves in Akasha. Hava sarvani hava imani bhutan akashat eva samutpadyant. Everything is created in Akasha. Akasham pratyastam. It stays only in Akash and it dissolves in Akash. Akash is only the highest, as Akash is Adhar for all. So this is the background of Akasha Adhikaran. Background is a discussion happening during Vedic period between two Brahman and one Kshatriya, in which ultimately the Kshatriya says Akash is the highest because it is the Adhar of all and everything is created from Akash. And what is the rationale behind it? Today, when we see all the plethora of things that are created in this universe, all the jivas, all the upadhis, all the suns, all the Milky Ways, all the galaxies, all everything is all is possible simply because there is space. Anything that exists in the form of upadhi cannot exist if the space is not there. How can a thing exist if space is not there? Imagine, stretch the imagination that the space is not there. There will be nothing. Because though the sun is suspended and huge in diameter, it is suspended in what? Space. A tremendous billions of light years diameter galaxy whirling around at a speed of few 100,000 miles per second is doing so simply because it has a space to move. The presence of space makes it possible for the things to exist, otherwise things cannot exist. Some hollow was created so something inside was possible. If the hollow itself is not there, how can things be coming? And much more difficult than this is to imagine that when that space was not there, what was there? Whether even the question what was there when space was not there is a relevant question. Because to have something to be there, to have something to be there, or to say that something was there, space is presumed. So the question when space is not there, what was there itself appears oxymoron, because when space is not there, we cannot imagine how anything can be there. So this logically in the contemplation realizes that everything has come after the space. So space is the Aadhar, Akash is the Aadhar for everything that exists. Take away the Akash, universe cannot exist. And that is why Akasha Tattva or Akasha is the only one which has no property of any kind. What is the Akar or shape of Akasha? It has no shape. Akasha is not Savayava because we can't see the part of sky. Everything within the sky has all the properties. Akasha seems to be the only one which is without properties. How vast the Akash is beyond imagination, because in the Akash, the galaxies and everything are suspended. It is the outermost boundary of all that is existing, but which boundary of which is not known, boundary of which cannot be imagined. Further you go, further there will be space. As long as going is there from a point to another point, that means distance is there. Moment the concept of distance is there, that means the concept of disha is there. And whenever there is a concept of distance, time has to be there, because time is nothing else but the difference between the 2 points. So as long as time and distance, dik and kal, space and time and distance are there, space is bound to be there. That means time resides within the space. And this need not be told from the point of view of Veda or the Nasadiya Sukta. The space-time relationship is the crux or the soul of the theory of relativity. The concept called warping of space described in theory of relativity is what? The magnetic forces warp the space. That warping of the space ultimately leads to relevant changes in time, and that is what makes the time relative. Although warped, it is space. So space exists. Space can be manipulated, but the presence of space and its vastness can never be ever guessed. That being the state, in Chandogya Upanishad, Jaivali mentioning that sky is the Adhar, Akash is the Adhar of everything, and everything is created from Akash only, puts a question to us that whether Akash here is Brahma or whether Akash here is a Pancha Mahabhuta. The height at which the contemplation, the mananam of the rishis have gone is a matter of great surprise. Because after knowing and imagining and contemplating the vastness of the space, they were still not satisfied as space as the final boundary, because they wanted to know whether space also, which otherwise looks infinite, is finite or not. And then At the higher level of contemplation, where the consciousness reached the highest level, they were able to transcend the space itself. And transcending space itself would mean transcending space and time. And when they transcended the space and time, they realized a state called Brahmi Bhutata. From the standpoint of Brahmi Bhutata or Brahma, they realize that the space is also a limited Pancha Mahabhuta. However, in this discussion of Chandogya Upanishada, when it is referred to as the creator of everything and sustainer of everything, Sama Utpadyanta and Adhara, is this reference made to Akash as Pancha Mahabhuta, or here the reference to Akash is as reference to Brahma only? That is the subject of Akash Adhikarana, for which Kim Akasha Shabdena Parabrahmam Abhidhiyate Ut Bhutakasham iti. Is it pointing towards Parabrahma or it is pointing towards Bhutakasha? That is the Shanka, Samasya. And the Purva Paksha says it is referring to Akash as Panchamahabhuta, not as a Brahma. Why? Because Akash is commonly known as the Mahabhuta. And when you have such a common meaning of Akash as one of the Pancha Mahabhuta, why would you call Akash as Parabrahma? Point number one of Purva Paksha. Point number two is the Purva Paksha says, if you say Sarva Bhutani Akashat Eva Sama Utpadyanta, if you say that there is a statement that everything is produced from the Akasha, it is not talking about Brahma, it is talking about Pancha Mahabhuta, because what it is talking of Sama Utpadyanta is, in Taittiriya Upanishada, there is a Rucha which says, Tasmat va etasmat Atman Akashaha Sambhuta Akashat Vayuhu Vayu Agnihi Ityadi. Akashat Vayu Vayut Agni, that is there in Taittiriya Upanishada. That means in this Rucha, it is talking about creation of further Pancha Mahabhutas. It is not talking about creation of the whole world. So it is not a reference to Brahma, but it is a reference to Akash as Pancha Mahabhuta. Doubt is whether Akash is Pancha Mahabhuta Tattva or Brahma in this context of Chandogya Upanishada. Otherwise, Akash is a Pancha Mahabhuta. But Akash, the way it is referred in Chandogya Upanishada, is it Pancha Mahabhuta or Brahma is the question. Why? Because based on that answer, sadhana is going to differ. If Akash is Pancha Mahabhuta Tattva, then it can be contemplated or upasana can be done as a Pancha Mahabhuta. But if Akash is referred to as a Brahma, as a Saguna Brahma, then the sadhana or the upasana can be done according to that. So now the Siddhanta Paksha is trying to counter argue. And to counter argue, this particular mantra is given in the Brahma Sutra, Akashas Tatlingat. That is the only sutra. Akashas Tatlinga, Akashaha Tatlingat. Meaning what? Akash means here Parabrahma only. That is why many a times in Upanishads loosely Akash is used as Brahma. Brahma is referred to as Akash. Even in Grantha like Dasabodha of Samartha Ramadas, Akash Nirupana is given. And the whole Nirupan is putting Akash as Brahma only. So that is why one should not get confused between Akash as Panchamahabhuta, because Upanishada has a habit of having ruchas where sometimes the Brahma is referred to as Prana, sometimes the Brahma is referred as Akasha, sometimes the Brahma is referred as Aditya or Surya. That should not confuse a person. That is why Brahma Sutras are explained here. Brahma Sutra's job is to explain such confusing statements. So it says, But the Purva Paksha will not just agree because it is Brahma. They want to know what is the reasoning. So the reasoning is Akash Tatlingat means a specific Lakshana of Akash has been told. What is the Lakshana? Sarvani Hava Imani Bhutani Akashat Eva Sama Utpadyante. All are created in Akash. It is said in Chandogya Upanishad that all are created in Akash. When all word is used, all means everything. And the only ability to create everything is only in Parabrahma. That is why Akash here is referring to Parabrahma only, not Panchamahabhuta. Second important thing is Akasham Pratyastam Yanti. Akash is the Sreshth. Akash hi Vaibhyo. Akash is the only Adhar. Both these statements indicate Sreshtata and ultimate Adhar. Both are only applicable to Parabrahma because Parabrahma is the ultimate abode, ultimate Adhar, ultimate Ashraya. That is why it is Atishaya Sreshtha and Uchcha Adhar. Also, in the same Chandogya Upanishada, further a Shruti says, Jayan Prithivya, Jayan Antarikshaha, Jayan Divo, Jayan Anebhyaha, Lokebhyaha. Sreshtha than Prithvi, Sreshtha than Antariksha, Sreshtha than Swarga, Sreshtha than this Loka is Akash. So, for the purpose of study and sadhana, Akash referred in Chandogya Upanishada has to be taken as Parabrahma and not as Panchamabhuta is the final decision based on the counter arguments of Siddhanta Paksha. This is where Akash Adhikaran ends. It is now established that what is referred as Akash is nothing else but is a reference to the Saguna Brahma only, not Panchamabhuta. Our biggest confusion in sadhana is when we say Surya Devata and we consider Surya as Parabrahma, that time are we talking of Surya as Upadhi or Surya as Parabrahma? And the answer is Saguna Brahma in the form of Vibhuti. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna Bhagavan said, Arjuna, all these Vibhutis are nothing else but me only. Know them as my Vibhuti. So anything that is Bhavya Divya is my Vibhuti. My Vibhuti meaning it is the same Parabrahma which has come in the form of Saguna Brahma and then performing some high function. So don't consider it as only part of universe. We can look at sun as one of the Jiva. We can also look at the sun as Bhagavan himself. It depends on which way you look at. So references when they are given to the sun or the Surya, references when they are given to Akasha, references when they are given to Agni, references when they are given to Prana, these references in Upanishads are given with the intent of calling these as nothing else but Saguna Brahma. And why so? Because Saguna Brahma is the only way a person can do Upasana. On Nirgun Brahma, Upasana is almost next to impossible. So that is why Saguna Brahma being the Dheya for Upasana, the Upasaka can contemplate on that Dheya and become the Dheya. So Surya Sama Swarupa, Vakratunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Sama Prabha, Sama. Who is Ganapati? Ganesha is that exalted soul who has reached to Surya Koti Samaprabha. Billions of sun together, whatever they may have the light, something similar to that. If that is the case, then in the beginning somebody will be Eka Surya Samaprabha, then Dvi Surya Samaprabha. What is Eka Surya Samaprabha? A common human being, a mortal, through the help of contemplation or sadhana, becomes the sun, Eka Surya Samaprabha. Then Eka Surya Samaprabha, the contemplation helps him to identify with all the lighted objects of the world. Surya Koti Samaprabha. Then the person will be having the same amount of intellect as Bhagavan Sri Ganesha itself, because now he is Devata in himself. That is why Samartha Ramadas calls all the saintly people as Bhudeva. Bhudeva means they are in our form, but in terms of their ability, they are no less than the gods themselves. And that is why Akash Adhikarana is expressing a direct pronunciation that Akash is referring to Parabrahma only. Then comes the next Adhikarana, which is called Pranadhikarana. In this particular Pranadhikaranam, also there is a small background that we need to know. And the background is, when Samaveda is sung at the Yajna, Samaveda is nothing else but majority of it is comprised of Rigvedic ruchas only, but set in meters and sung, not read. So Samaveda Rushi, who had authority and specialization in singing Sam, each rucha was called Sam. Each rucha had 5 or 7 divisions. Each rucha started with Omkar. So each rucha had 5 parts. The first part of a Samavedic rucha is called Om. Now this Om, which is the beginning of each rucha of Samaveda, was sung by specialized priest called Udgit. So Udgata, the Rishi called Udgata, and it was not one. There were many, 4, 8, 12, 16, like this they used to come, and they, in their absolute perfect pronunciation with contemplative mode in the meditative state, they used to say, oh. And that is how Rucha singing used to start. This is called Samaveda Yajna is happening now. Once they are done with their Omkara, the first part of the Samavedic Rucha, then the second part of the Rucha is called Prastava. This Prastava part of the Rucha is sung by special set of Rishis called Prastota. So Udgit will go on the backside, and Prastotas will get up and come, and they will start singing only the first part of the Samavedic Rucha in the perfect pronunciation called a Swara, so that the mantra siddhi happens, and that part is called Prastava. So Prastota was singing Prastava and going back. Then came the third part of the Rucha, which is called Udgita part. Udgita part was sung by, the Pratihar part. So the Pratihara part, the third part, was sung by Pratihara Rishi. So Pratihara Rishis would come forward, sing the Pratihar part and go back. And the last part of the Rucha was called Nidhanam. And the Nidhanam Rucha was sung by special set of Rishi called Subramanya. So one Rucha of Samaveda was sung in the form whereby it becomes Mantra Siddha with the perfect Swara, by first the Udgata Rishi, then by Prastota Rishi, then by Pratihara Rishi, then by Subramanya Rishi. And these 4 parts were previously followed by the Omkara. The Omkara was again done by a separate set of Rishis. So these way, each part of the Samavedic Rucha is called Bhakti. Now, this Bhakti should not be confused with the Bhakti that we normally say. Bhakti means one part of Samavedic Rucha. So each Rucha had 5 Bhaktis. Om was the first Bhakti, and then there were 4 parts of the Rucha. Each of these 5 were sung by separate Rishis. And when one king was performing such a Samavedic Yajna with all these 16 priests that had come, in Yajna there is to be 16 priests, 4 for each Veda. And these 4, of which one was for Samaveda, was the main Rishi, which was called Adhvaryu. This Adhvaryu had many other Rishis on his back, each of which was then specialized in this part of Samavedic Rucha called Bhakti, whose names we saw as Udgata, Prastota, Pratihara, and Subramanya. When one such particular Samavedic Yajna was happening, as described in Chandogya Upanishad, one poor Brahmin who had lost all his belongings in a small fire or famine, whatever happened in his place, had come to beg for the alms, and he saw the yajna going on, so he came there. And when he came there, although he was hungry, he being the knowledgeable person, he wanted to know whether these Samavedic Rishi who are chanting these mantras, they know what is going on in terms of intellectual understanding. And that is why he came and asked a question. He asked 3 questions to 3 set of Rishis. He asked Prastota Rishi, he asked Udgata Rishi, and he asked Pratihara Rishi. And the question he asked to 3 of them is, what is the Adhisthana Devata of each of you? To whom are you doing upasana? Whom are you propitiating? When Prastava Devata, meaning the first part of Samaveda is chanted, who is the Adhishtatri Devata? When the second Udgit is chanted, who is the Adhisthata Devata? When Pratihar part is chanted, who is the Adhisthata Devata? And the answer given by them, the Prastota Rishi said, my presiding Devata is Prana. Udgata Rishi said, my presiding deity is Aditya. And the Pratikarta Rishi said, my Pratihara section Adhishtatri Devata is Anna. So they gave their interpretation of who is the presiding deity. Presiding means whom are they doing upasana on, whom are they contemplating on. And then when this was done, then the discussion started by that poor Brahmin called Shastrayana, and he asked, Katama sa devata iti prana iti hovacha sarvani hava imani bhutani pranam eva abhisamvishanti pranam abhyujjihate saisha devata prastava manvayatta iti. When Prastav Adhishtatri Devata was asked, answer given was, Prana is the highest deity. From Prana everything happens. Because of all bhutas are created in Prana and maintained in Prana, and ultimately they laya, they dissolve in Prana. So Prana is the highest Devata. This is mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad. Now comes the question, in this discussion of these 3-4 Rishis, they are referring to Prana as the highest, and they are also mentioning everything came from Prana, everything dissolves in Prana. If that is the case, is it mentioned Prana as Brahma or Prana as Vikar of Vayu Pancha Mahabhuta, because Prana is not Pancha Mahabhuta. We saw last time Akash was a Pancha Mahabhuta. So the confusion was between Akash as Pancha Mahabhuta or Parabrahma. Now the confusion is Prana, which is not a Pancha Mahabhuta, but it is a Vikar of Vayu Pancha Mahabhuta. Pran is Vikar of Vayu Pancha Mahabhuta because Pran is made up of Vayu. So here the Pran that they are talking about, is it about Parabrahma or the Pran which has got 5 types of Pran and 5 types of Upapran? We all know that Vyan, Apan, Udan, Saman, Pran. Is it talking to that Pran? Or Pran here means Parabrahma? This is the question, which is the question called Pranadhikaranam. What are the for and what are the against arguments is what is the subject of our next session. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Sanjay Ji, it
Hari
was
Om.
wonderful explaining this the escalation from Agashat Vayu, Vayu Ragni, Agni Rapaha, Adya Abhya Pradivya, Aushadaya, Aushadayo, Annam, Annat Purushaha. That Purusha is ourselves man, actually, it is not Parabrahma. That is understood. Now, it was interesting to note that last week when we landed in the moon, and the ISRO chairman was explaining the things, and finally he concluded that everything is going to come to an end. Even the sun, earth, everything will vanish one day. And at that moment, I was really thrilled because ultimately the Parabrahma, the super consciousness, will remain forever. Even if the sun extinguishes and the earth vanishes, this Bodha or the Brahma will remain forever. That itself gives us a very solace, very comfort for a Vedantic Vidyarthi. Now, my suggestion is that I am unable to trace certain these sutras. So, if we can give the sutra number and the title of sutra in the group, that is easy for us to track it.
Yes.
That's only now today we have discussed Agashastha Lingat 20th sutra, and we are going for Atha Eva Prana in the next session.
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. With great difficulty I traced this because in between I lost the track.
Yeah.
So this is great. Yeah, now I have no questions. Now you have to conclude in the next session because the thing is remaining in for the next session and furthermore, because a question cannot be asked now at this stage because it is too premature to ask such questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji.
Ji.
Very detailed explanations about the Vedas and the origination and all. Now your specific thrust is given for the Sama Vedas. There are other many Vedas also, Rig Veda, Raj Veda, like that. Now in Bhagavad Gita it is saying Vedanam Sama Vedasya. Sama Vedasya is the ultimate, or that is I was understood that it is only for common man's musical interpretation kind of thing. So, more importance is given for Samveda or other Vedas?
The most important and the most prime Veda is Rigveda. Rigveda, because there is nothing that is not contained in the Rigveda which is existing as knowledge anywhere else. So all knowledge is contained in Rigveda. Thus far, no further is the situation of Rigveda. But Rigveda is a prose So Rigveda, in order to ingrain the meaning, have the contemplation on the thought, we needed to do the way we do Namasmaranam. It needs to be set into some kind of meter and melody so that it can be pronounced in a manner that each mantra then starts becoming live for us. That is why mantra ucharanam was started. In mantra ucharanam, it is the swara that was given importance, because at the end, mantra is nothing else but something that has inspired from the Paravani. Paravani is called Ishwaravani or Brahmavani or Nad Brahma. This Paravani, when it emanates and gets into some formative aspect, then it becomes Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari. So when you are trying to pronounce it through Vaikhari, it loses its meaning because there is not much of a contact left with the Paravani, although it is in a very flimsy appearance. As the Swaraj start migrating from Vaikhari to Madhyama, Madhyama to Pashyanti, and ultimately to Para, then the mantra is Siddha. In those days, many Rishis and Aryans being Jivan Mukta, the way they used to pronounce, they knew about it. So a hymn or the Rucha of the Rigveda set to melody, put it into a meter and sung in a proper manner so that each swara then ultimately goes and knocks at the door of Paravani, was the commonest and the most exalted aspect. That is why in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, I am the Samaveda in the Vedas. I am the in Samaveda, meaning when Sama Rucha is sung in the proper swara, in the highest contemplative mode, then Arjuna, it is me who is seen there while singing. So it is me who is the Samaveda. So there is no great or lesser great. Samaveda is nothing else but 95%, 99% Rigveda only. But in a meter form, in a singable form, that which can be sung. Atharva Veda is much later an addition. That is why last couple of weeks back we saw Gurudeva has given that it contains engineering knowledge and some mystic spells. So it is not considered into the three Vedas that we talk about. So Samaveda has a very high importance. Chandogya Upanishada being the part of Samaveda, and the rishis that were involved in Samaveda Gayana, being of these four different types, their background was taken while narrating the story through which a most important pertinent question of Brahma was discussed, and the reference came to these different types of words like Akasha and Prana, and to avoid that confusion, Brahma Sutra was written and explained by Shankaracharya. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Is it true that these Vedas are best chanted by the region called Nagaland?
No, it is not true. The entire Bharat Varsha was replete with the rishis who could sing it in the proper form. Now again, each singing has a different level. Those who could pronounce it properly and sing it properly, that is still considered as a Vaikhari Gayan. Vaikhari Gayan is definitely better than anything else that we do in our life. However, it is inferior to what is called as Madhyama Gayan. Madhyama Gayan is slowly the rishis into the higher mode. Then during that particular Madhyama Gayan, he sometimes reaches to a level called Pashyanti Gayana. You must have realized that those singers of the classical music, when they sing, sometimes the swara goes to such a level that suddenly even the singer feels something inside. That is called as just touching the bottom of your Madhyama. Now imagine somebody singing in Pashyanti, which is a very rare phenomena. Swami Vivekananda, whenever he used to sing any bhajan, he used to get that effect because while singing he used to go in samadhi. And that is the time when his singing was happening, people were completely spellbound. It was not spellboundness, it was the impact of Brahmi Bhutata of Swami Vivekananda on the surrounding people. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Sanjay ji, are there any known people who chants this Sama Veda? Because I understand that in Kerala there are only one or two people who can really do this.
There are some in Telugu Pranta, and in Andhra Pradesh there are some of them. Also, there are some people in certain parts of Tamil Nadu, because in Samaveda also it's not only one type, because in Samaveda again you have Shakha, and in the Shakha again the pronunciation then slightly varies. But again, all these that we are referring is a Shastrokta pronunciation of the Samaveda by learned people under a guru, but still it is restricted only to the Vaikhari Vani. Only those who have taken this Samaveda Rucha and sung it with the sole purpose of realization of Brahma, they are extremely rare to find. So as far as chanting is concerned, yes, there are certain pockets where they are available. Even in Karnataka, in Shimoga district, there are some of the Rishis, some of the Ritviks, they can chant Samaveda properly. Hari Om.
Hari Om. And also, Sanjay, this Rucha means what exactly? Rucha.
One quartet, when we say one line of 4 components, which is called in English as hymn or hymn, is called a Rucha. Rucha means it has a Chatvara Pad, it has 4 parts, and every Rucha has to start with Omkara. So it is considered to have 5 padas. So Om and the Rucha will start, and it will end with 4 parts. Each part is called Bhakti. Not to confuse with the devotional Bhakti, etc. Bhakti is the name to one part of the 4 parts of the Samaveda. There are some Rishis who considered that each Rucha has 7 parts, because it depends upon how you sing it. So some of them take 7 parts, some of them take 5 parts. Hari Om.
That is what you have said this as the Udgada, Prastata, Pratihara,
Absolutely.
and Nidhana.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because each Rucha and each part of the Rucha of the entire Samaveda was recited in childhood till you become adult, first for the sake of just by hearting it as a brahmachari, and then you start contemplating on it, and then you make the mantra siddha, and such a siddha mantra Rishis were called to chant by many people, the bigger house people or even the king, and that is how the yajna used to be performed those days. Hari Om. And this singing of Samaveda was heard by Swami Vivekananda when he was traveling from Nainital to Almora. He saw on the sky in the golden letter the Ruchas written, and he could actually hear the singing of the Rishis of that time. Such was the exalted soul called Swami Vivekananda. Hari Om.
Yeah. And also, Sanjay, this is only applicable for Samaveda, or what about Yajurveda, this Rucha, these 4 parts and all that?
Yes, it is applicable to all the Vedas, Yajurveda also, and this. Only thing is, why in Samaveda it is more pronounced? Because it is to be sung. When you are singing, then you must know, because then the swara becomes completely different. It is set in motion. Prose reading, Yajurveda is prose reading. Rigveda is prose reading. Prose reading also requires pronunciation, but then it is not melodious. When you want to stick to the swara and want to make it melodious, it is an art by itself. That is why Narada Muni, the gayan that he does is of this Samaveda. And Tumbara, there is another community of exalted Deva called Tumbara. Narad and Tumbara, they on their Veena, because Veena is the instrument that sets perhaps the perfect swara for matching it with the Sama swaras. That is why Veena has been given important. Hari Om.
Hari Om.